everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 5:02 Central Time, 6:02 Eastern, and I promised that I would start on time, and we're very close to being on time. Kathy from California and Samantha and Renee just are joining us as well. So, but I'll kick it off, and it is such a delight for me to see all your smiling faces. I miss you all so much. I love you all. I invited my dearest friends tonight for 3 reasons to this event. First, I'm extremely selfish and I wanted to see you all. Second, I'm very excited to be on the board of Friends of Gong Road, an organization that I've loved for a number of years, but just haven't had the space to commit. And so I want to share this with you. And then thirdly, after a 40-year career, which I haven't stopped yet, but after a 40-year career of driving growth and change, I know the power of getting the right people together behind a challenge and the incredible joy that comes from having an impact on others' lives. And I know that that's really important to so many of you as well. And so for any organization to thrive, we all know that it has to have a really solid foundation. And so the primary reason that I'm involved in this organization, because we all get asked to do lots of different things, I have chosen to be involved with Friends of Gong Road because of 2 people who are on this call. At least they're the ones that hooked me in. And so first is Paula Meyer, and you see Paula there on the screen in the beautiful white sweater. Paula was my boss when she was the president of Piper Capital in the mid-90s. And some of you have heard me say that at times in tough situations, I need to channel my inner Paula Meyer. Okay. And even when I coach young women in our company and elsewhere, I've often used this phrase, let me tell you about channeling my inner Paula Meyer. And so what I mean by that is to make big things happen, we all need to draw on that extra store of strength and brain power and confidence and purpose. And that's Paula. So she has led as president of key businesses, not only at Piper, but at Ameriprise. She's on several corporate boards. She makes big things happen. She's the one who taught me the phrase BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. I didn't know what that meant until Paula told me what it meant. And so she drew me to Friends of Gong Road. The other person that drew me won't be speaking tonight, so you won't hear from Keith, but Keith Kale. So Keith, maybe you could wave. So Keith, bearded one in Southern California, I think. Keith was also my boss, and Patty Peterson too, at that time, back in the late 90s. And so you see a trend here, right? So Keith brought his international strategy and marketing background from Pillsbury to Piper Jaffray, and he taught me so much. And so much around being a great executor is important, being able to do stuff well is important, but you also have to be strategic and a planner to really make big things happen. He once told me, and Patty, you may remember this, Kim, you just don't get branding. You just don't understand branding. And it was when I was coming up with some swag idea for this new retirement plan product that Patty and I were working on, and we had all the swag, but we didn't put logos on it. So he didn't have to tell me twice that I needed to really understand branding. But you're going to meet other super smart people. Tonight you'll meet John Kuntz, who has key strategic leadership background from Pillsbury, from Breathe Right, from the Fairview Hospital Health System, and his consulting work. There are so many smart, talented, high integrity people who are behind this organization. And I would love to have you meet them all at some point, but you won't meet them all tonight. So I'm involved because of the integrity and the passion of these people and everybody involved in this organization, but also and mostly because of the impact that I have seen over the last 12 years, that when you educate one kid, you can pull an entire family out of poverty. And we've seen it happen. If you have the right responsible structure and process behind the scenes driving it, you educate one kid, you can pull an entire family out of poverty. So you're going to see a couple of videos that I think will give you a sense for the organization. You're going to hear from both Paula and John, as I mentioned, and you'll get a glimpse into some of the children that we serve. And I'll talk about a couple of the kids that we have sponsored, and we'll have some time at the end to raise a glass together. So with that, why don't we roll the video, Michonne?
So when I was first invited to consider sponsoring a child, I responded immediately with a yes, that of course we would sponsor not one, but 2 children. And that was before I really had seen the circumstances that these children live in. And as I reflected on it and on the possibility of creating Friends of Gong Road, and in the end decided to proceed because even though there are lots of great programs that help children, we still seem to have an infinite number of orphans and vulnerable children in this world. And one of my core beliefs is that every kid deserves a chance. These kids here don't have a chance unless they get an education. That is the only path out for them. These children live in circumstances that I've never seen in the United States, and I think most Americans have never experienced. They live in the midst of a great deal of mud when it rains. There's open sewage running through the slums. It's chaotic. There are people everywhere, and somehow in that chaos they have to find a way to study and focus and navigate so that they can live a different life. Hopelessness is all around in the slums. You see so many examples of people who are just slogging through every day, trying to make enough money to get one meal in the day. I really think although our mission is to provide education, the central thing that we provide to these children is hope for a better life. The only way a kid can transform their life is to get a job. And so now our program follows kids from primary school through high school, some college, and then eventually to employment. I knew the need was great, and I knew that there were so many people in the United States who would be delighted to lend a hand to a child in Nairobi. So I just felt like we needed to do more than just sponsor a child ourselves. We needed to create an opportunity for people to have a relationship with a child in Nairobi and to affect lots of lives. And that's really how Friends of Gong Road was born. As with most journeys, if you knew everything that was going to happen, you might not have taken the first step. We've had fabulous experiences. We've had some very challenging experiences. We now have about 60 students who are finished with the program, who are alumni, and who have jobs. And each of those young people, they're now young adults, knows that their life has been transformed profoundly. They live a different life today than they could have ever even imagined when they joined the program. But the work isn't done. There are thousands, no, millions of children in Kenya who need a hand. I hope that you will consider starting on this journey with us. As opportunities to help others come our way, it's important that we find time to get our heads clear and consider whether this is the time, this is the opportunity where we can really have a legacy impact on others.
Thank you all for being here with us today. I am Paula Meyer, and I'm the founder and president of Friends of Gong Road. This next picture that you see is on the left, a picture of me with Emily. She is the first student who was sponsored in Friends of Gong Road, and this picture was taken in 2007 or 2008. And then on the right, in the red, is Emily today. We also have, this is my husband and I, and this picture actually was taken on Valentine's Day in 2020. We have with us Alicia on the far left and Hope. So these are three of the 5 or 6 students that we've sponsored since this program began. Alicia is a civil engineer today, and Hope and Emily are working in the business world in Kenya. So we founded this program in 2007, and our mission is to provide education and support for children in Nairobi who live in poverty and whose families have been affected by AIDS. But the last 6 words of the mission statement are the most important. We're not just doing this for fun, we're doing this so they can transform their lives. We define a life that's transformed as being when a student finishes their education and they get a job in the formal Kenyan economy. So here's how we tackle that. Of course, education is the centerpiece of what we do. And we work hard. We didn't always do this, but we work hard at the admission process. We administer exams to these students. We interview their family. We do both a planned interview and a surprise visit to their home. We interview their neighbors. Our goal is to find families. These are very, very poor families. They live in the slums of Nairobi. They on average earn about $2 a day. And so there's drug abuse and sexual abuse and alcohol abuse and all kinds of stuff that happens. But it doesn't happen everywhere. And we're looking for families who believe in education, where we think the kids are going to get enough support to be successful. We pay school fees, books, uniforms, all the things that they need to get through school. We recruit these kids in primary school, usually in 3rd or 4th grade, and then we stick with them. In Kenya, they finish primary school at the end of 8th grade. We then send them to a single gender boarding school for high school, which is the common practice in Kenya. And then when they finish high school, we support them through some post-secondary education. For most, it's like a junior college here or a 2-year college, at the end of which they have some skills that will allow them to get a job. Because they are raised in families where there's very little formal employment, we also along the way do employment counseling to help them understand what kinds of jobs are possible, and some life skills training to help them understand what their own strengths are and where they might fit in the larger world. In the category of safety and well-being, we have a wide variety of programs. We learned very early on that students weren't getting enough to eat. And so we started to feed them lunch every school day, and then concluded that we needed to add breakfast every school day. So they get breakfast and lunch every school day when they're in primary school. When they're in boarding school, they get 3 meals a day plus tea. And we, of course, also provide nutrition for families that are particularly strapped, to try to help them get through to the other side. We provide basic health care. Our case managers visit homes to check on safety. And we started in 2017 a sexual and reproductive health program. We worked with Tulane University and had graduate students doing a survey of what are the sexual and reproductive health training programs that are most effective with adolescents. And what we learned is that youth peer provider programs work best. And so we recruited among our recent graduates 20 youth peer providers, and we hired Planned Parenthood Global to train them. Those youth peer providers, since then, every single year, every kid that's older than 6th grade has an in-depth 1-day training session about all the things they need to understand about their bodies and their sexuality. And importantly, the youth peer providers are available so that when students have a question, they have somebody who's in their cohort that they can go to ask those questions of. We also have a relationship with a nearby clinic so that no questions asked, any of our girls can get long-lasting kind of implantable devices to manage their own sexuality. We've seen a significant decrease in the number of unplanned for pregnancies since we started this program in late 2017. Finally, in the category of supportive community, we have case managers. Each student is assigned a case manager, and their job is to be sure that we're tracking on what's happening with each of these children. As you can imagine, in the slums, a lot of stuff can change, and it can change fast. And so the case managers are on top of each family situation. We have a Saturday program that in the early days was really just designed to be sure that these kids had one nutritious meal on the weekends, because we couldn't be sure that they were going to. But we've added many child development components to this program. So every Saturday, mostly our primary school age kids come together for the Saturday program. In August, we have camp each year, and that is their one opportunity in the year to get out of the slums of Nairobi. If you ask any kid in our program, they'll tell you it is their favorite time of the year when they get to go to camp. Importantly, we also started a library so kids can take books home. Most of these households do not have electricity, so the availability of books that they can take home to read is really important to them. And then we have a computer lab, because you can't get a job anywhere in the world today without understanding how to operate a computer. So those are the elements of what we do, but I'd like to just expand on supportive community a little bit. We have adopted this phrase called we-powerment. And what we mean by this is that it really does take, and we believe that the thing that differentiates this program is that we have this broad community of support and an infrastructure of support around these students. So let's start in the lower left. Of course, it begins importantly with students. I one time had the opportunity to be with a bunch of students, and I asked them to tell me what they thought it meant to be rich. And they said, they talked amongst themselves and giggled and chattered. And then they said, we think someone's rich when they have enough money to help a kid they're not related to go to school. And that's what our sponsors do. They provide financial support so that we can bring these programs to students. Friends of Gong Road, of course, helps strategically design these programs and measure their impact. And we do the fundraising and all of the work related to financial controls, which is not trivial. It's incredibly important in the developing world that you have good financial control infrastructure to be sure that money is going where it's intended to go. We have donors who aren't sponsors and lots of volunteers, including me. I mean, I'm a volunteer, as is Keith, as is John, as is Kim. Most of the work that we do in the United States is done by volunteers, although we have a couple of very incredible employees, including Mishan, the woman behind the curtain here. In Kenya, we have a staff of about 20, and that includes case managers and computer lab leaders and a wide variety of people who support the organization and the delivery of the program there. We have a foundation board in Kenya that consists of Kenyan professionals, and they provide insight about the educational system in Kenya, but their biggest commitment to us is to help students once they finish their education, get a job. These students, it's true everywhere in the world, of course, getting that first job is the hardest. And these students have no networks and really no family members who've ever worked in the formal Kenyan economy. So our Kenyan board is really active at engaging with their network and helping our students at least get an interview and get their foot in the door. And they seem to be able to take it from there. And then, of course, the schools and teachers in Kenya are incredibly important supporters of our students, as are their family members. Just one other word about families. About half of the kids in our program are orphans. Of the three I showed you a picture of that I sponsor, Alicia and Emily are both orphans. Faith is like the other half of students in our program. They live with an HIV positive parent. And so that's a very up and down world. But this is the we-powerment system of support that we have around our students. So our program has grown. As you can see, in the early days in 2007, 8, 9, we started with just primary age students. And then we had a decision to make: are we going to support kids in high school? And we decided to do that. And so the orange part of these bars are students that are in high school. And then we decided that they can't transform their lives if they can't get a job, and they can't get a job if they don't have some post-secondary education. And so that's what the green part of the bar is. And the red part is alumni. Today we have about 100 alumni, 95 to 100 alumni. It changes sort of every month. We have about 150 students in post-secondary programs, about 120 in high school, and about 100 in primary school. So that's sort of the breakdown. This is Eric Body on the left. He was our first university graduate. He today is a supervisor at a firm called Digital Divide Data. What they do is take handwritten documents and digitize them. So he's overseeing students and well, actually employees who are doing data entry, taking handwritten things and digitizing them. So of course, what I've described to you is our aspiration. So what are our results? So since the inception of the program, we've had about 600 kids through the program, and around 125 have dropped out. So these are results that are cumulative. They were last calculated at the end of 2019. And so of those students who began primary school, 92% finished primary school. So again, that's K through 8. In Kenya, 63% of students finished primary school. Of the students who started secondary school or high school, this is 9, 10, 11, and 12, 83% in our program finished, which compares to about 42% in Kenya. And it's actually the same as the high school graduation rate in the United States. We don't have this data point in here, but of those students who started a post-secondary program, 87% of them finished. And if they did all of that, if they finished primary, if they finished secondary, and if they finished a post-secondary program, 98% of those students who completed that post-secondary program got a job or an internship that we think will lead to employment within 3 months of finishing their training. In Kenya, there's not formal measurement of the unemployment rate. Anecdotally, business leaders that I talk to in Kenya say they think it's 40% approximately in the formal Kenyan economy. And of course, it's much higher for youth. So we are very proud of these results. It takes lots of ongoing diligence to get these results, but this is what our program is about. It is about transforming lives through education and employment. Now I'd like to share a more specific story with you about a young woman named Mercy. And her path is similar to many, and it'll give you a good idea of what these students' lives are like.
We had a great family, but in the year 2005, everything started changing. That's when my mom started becoming sick. She was in and out of the hospital most of the time, and a lot of financial used to pay the bills. That's when we started missing school because there was no enough school fees. After she passed away, she left two of my siblings. They were only 4 days old. After two years, my father also got sick. He passed away. But when I got into Ngong Road, I had low self-esteem. I couldn't even speak in front of people. Everything changed after I joined Ngong Road because they paid my school fees. They bought me new uniform, a pair of shoes, and it made me feel confident when I go in front of people. I started performing well in my studies. They helped me a lot.
Hi, my name is Paula Meyer, and I'm the founder of Friends of Gong Road. The mission of our organization hasn't changed since its inception. It is to provide education and support for impoverished Nairobi children whose families have been affected by AIDS, so they can transform their lives. Mercy Wanjiru is a great example of a life that has been transformed with support from our program. Mercy is one of the lucky students in that she had the chance to meet her sponsor in 2012 and then again in 2018 when Chris traveled to Kenya. It's hard to overestimate the kind of boost that this gives kids when they have a chance to actually see the person who is donating to allow them to have an education.
Actually, I have some pictures the first time we met. She was very happy. We hugged each other, we cried, we couldn't get enough of the hugs. We were very happy. She used to write letters to me telling me that I'm great, she's proud of me, and I should work hard and achieve my goals. And it made me feel special having someone that I don't know, and she tells me that she's very proud of me because I look up to her like she's my mom.
I started sponsoring Mercy in 2006. She was a very timid girl. She was pretty shy, but she was very, very thankful for what I had done for her so far. Most of my initial experience was just letters, and I'd see pictures, and I would get reports from school or the caseworker as to how well she's doing in school. So as a sponsor, you hope that you can make a difference in this child's life. Starting out in the slums to having a job, I mean, she has broken the cycle, and that's powerful. Mercy, who is now 25 years old and living in Mombasa, is a social worker, and she specifically is helping sex workers get off drugs.
When kids enter our program, they're usually in 3rd or 4th grade. They're almost always shy and quiet with low self-confidence and lots of rough life experiences, including trauma. When they finish our program, they have a sense of who they are, a sense of their place in the world, and a job. And in the best cases, those students understand that it's their job to reach a hand back. Helping children transform their lives is only possible because of sponsors and donors who've been so committed to this program over so many years. We Powerment. Together, we are making a difference.
Together, we are making a difference. We Powerment.
We Powerment. Together, we are making a difference.
So I would like to tell you a little bit about 3 of the students that Tom and I have sponsored. And I also, before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Mashawn Garrett, who's behind the scenes, switching from video to slides. And she was a little stressed out at the beginning that it wouldn't go smoothly, and it's going beautifully. So thank you, Mashawn. And you can meet Mashawn at the end. So this is Duncan. So we met Duncan when he was about age 8, and there he is on the left-hand side of the screen. And he is now 21 on the right-hand side. He's Steffi's age, our granddaughter's age. And he is soon to graduate from automotive trade school. And so he will then, after he graduates from trade school, he will get a job and he will be able to support his aunt and uncle and cousins. He did not have it easy as a kid. He lost both parents actually to HIV/AIDS and was raised by an uncle for a while and now a different aunt and uncle. And he's had his ups and downs like any kid, and then not like any kid, but especially, when he was a little boy, when we first met him, he wanted to be a pilot. And as a teenager, he struggled, in school. And now he's maturing, and he's been very interested in Michael's career. He sends us letters. He tells us he loves us. And he's been doing this since age 8, all these years. And he will ask in his letters about Andrew and Steffi and the twins. And so he, I think, has made the world more approachable for them. Like, it makes the world smaller for the rest of our family. And, we've been able to help Duncan get all the way through school. And here he is, almost a grown man, and he'll get a job and he'll lift that family out of poverty. This is Miriam on the right-hand side in the blue sweater. We just met Miriam last year. She's a sweet little girl, very quiet, shy. She loves to learn. She loves to write. Her printing, when she writes us letters, is beautiful. And they also can do letters online, and they get emailed to us, but she loves to write. She loves to read. She's got this kind of sparkly energy, and Miriam wants to be a doctor. So, and Paula mentioned, we also look for the kids to, lend a hand up to those behind them. So we actually asked Duncan to provide some encouragement, and he helped us make the selection of supporting Miriam, and, to be there kind of as a big brother if she needs help. And so I don't know how responsible he's going to be around that, but it was kind of part of the process there. And then on the other side of the screen, Anifa, we're just getting to know him. He is just a lovely, sweet kid. We got our first letter from him just 2 weeks ago online through the Friends of Gone Road website. And he's just this adorable little guy. And so, Duncan is going to be going off into the world and doing his thing. It'll be fun to have Anifa kind of come up behind him as well. So why do we do this? I guess it's probably obvious by now, but I share with all of you the passion for education, and that education is really the enabler. It's the biggest key to unlocking possibilities. And you saw in the videos how that happens here. So what the program, and John will talk a little bit more about this, but we've been able to provide uniforms, meals, a Saturday program, summer camp, and during the pandemic, which, by the way, the pandemic did not impact them as greatly as it did here in the United States, but they've been having a very difficult time accessing food because they've been on total lockdown. So we also provided a food program which served over 300 families during the pandemic. So just as of recently, the kids are back in school. And I guess the main point that I want to leave you all with is we all have things that we're involved in. We all have many demands on our time and our resources and our energy and our hearts. And to me, where we do put our energy and our resources, our money, our time, for me, I want to make sure that it's organized by people that we trust, that people are running a solid, well-run organization that works, that the money's well spent, and that lives are being changed. And that's what's happening here. So speaking of BHAGs, I told you that Paula taught me that term many years ago, big, hairy, audacious goal. Our goal is to double our impact over the next 5 years. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, John.
Thanks, Kim. Hi, everyone. I'm John Kuntz. I've been involved with Friends of Gone Road over 10 years now, and I've sponsored 2 students. See, Sylvia was my first, and she completed the program and is now working in the hospitality industry. And Dennis is my current student, and Dennis is it's about 13, which is about the age of my son, which is kind of great. kind of to have those two kind of in a similar age and try to connect them a little bit to relate to kind of their age group. And then recently, just last year, I joined the board of Friends of Gone Road. So what I want to do a little bit is today is just elaborate a little bit more on what it entails to be a sponsor. I think you've heard some wonderful sponsor stories and how we connect sponsors with wonderful kids and give them an incredible opportunity. The sponsors are the core of the program. It's really what makes this work. And it's not just, as you kind of heard already, it's just not, okay, great, I'm gonna help fund their education, but it's that support and that encouragement. You heard the stories of Mercy. It's just like, hey, she supported me, said, go after it, and set the goals and saying, you're doing great. That's the incredible part. And I think that's what makes Friends at Gong Road so unique for sponsors. It's not just like, okay, great, I'm helping some person in another country. It's creating that thing. So you're helping and you're a part of that life journey from primary through school onto employment. So it's really, as it says, that connection and that relationship that really makes this different. And that we support this. Friends of Gong really kind of helps make this happen. Kim kind of referred to it as we've created a really easy way just to directly connect. We have a great student portal, or sponsor student portal that allows you to send emails, get letters back. Now we have video capability, so you really can kind of go live, or not live, but share more kind of, they can hear you and you can hear them and hear their voice and kind of share pieces. And lots of pictures. I love getting pictures of Dennis or his letters from camp. There's great. And as we also made reference to, we have case managers in Kenya. They know your kids, they know the families, they know what's going on, and report back. Once again, to create that relationship, you're in tune. Just like if you have kids and you get the report from school, you're getting a report here about their test scores and how they're doing and how they can develop. It's giving an opportunity to reach back out and say, hey, keep going at it, work hard. And as I've not had the opportunity to go to Kenya, but that opportunity exists, and I can't wait to do it. I was kind of hoping to do it, but then COVID happened. So let's wait to COVID and then I will go. But you can hear from the stories and the pictures. It's a powerful, powerful experience. So what does it take? Because I like to think of it's an investment. It's an investment in a person's life to help them transform themselves. So sponsorships are $100 per month per student. And as people referenced, all that investment goes to the education costs. All of what you provide for sponsorships covers those things that we talked about: tuition, books, uniforms, materials, meals, housing if they're at boarding school. It covers all of that foundational piece with it. So it's really, it covers a lot. I mean, that's a great return on investment if you think about what these kids are getting. Now, we've talked about these other programs. Now, so the sponsorship doesn't cover everything. And some of these programs have developed over time, but they're critical for that kind of that development and the support of their personal development and maturity. And those programs we raise through additional fundraising and commitment from others. So this is probably the other half. So but from the combination of sponsors and donors, this all kind of comes together to really help support our kids. So as we look at it, so as we're here today, guess what? We're asking you to be a sponsor. And there are a lot of kids ready for sponsorship today. Over 200 are on a waiting list now. They've been pre-approved. We've had the information to them, so they're ready to go. And Michonne's gonna bring up right now is we're gonna actually show you the website if you haven't been on there. We have I think about 24 kids on there right now, looking to be sponsored today. And the matching process is easy as it comes up. You can go on there, you can see and kind of see the different kids on there. And maybe there's one that kind of is like, wow, that, I see the kid, you see there's something connects with you, you can read their story, or we have some kids you'll notice that have been on the waiting list a long time, and they're ready to go. But the other part of it you'll also see on the site is if you don't, some people just say, just tell me who has the greatest need, and do that. So there'll be a little button, we'll see it in a little bit, and it'll say, what does it say? It says match me. I think it says, yes, match me on the corner. And you can just select that, go through the process, sign up to be a sponsor, and then we'll connect you with one of the students of greatest need, or we think it'll just be a great match. Now, in that case, if you happen to like, well, I'd really like to have a boy, that's around 13, like my son. There's just put that in the comments section, and we'll find that. So if you have a preference within that, pause 1 second. Michonne, is it possible to bring up the website, or is
it's not loading? So I can keep trying, but it's refusing to load at the moment.
Well, regardless, we're going to send you to the website. You'll have an easy way to get there, and you'll see that. You'll see the pictures. You'll see the process. So, as I said today, we're hoping that you'll consider kind of being part of our community, that We Powerment community. Mostly, we hope a number of you will become sponsors and really helping transform a student's life. So, if you just went to the website, easy to just get to and click on the sponsor button right on the homepage. Or if you're not ready right now, we really hope you'll consider just help support those other programs that are helping the students that are in school to really make that happen. So a donation of any form would be great. As a lot of organizations, we'd love a monthly kind of sustaining a donation. So you'll see that available too. So within probably, if it hasn't gone out pretty shortly here, you'll get an email with the links, so you don't need to write anything down. They'll take you right there. We make it easy. So, and then Michonne, after we finish here, we'll have a little Q&A, a little social hour for all of you who are connecting, as I saw, and seeing old friends and connecting, and drink your wine, which is great. Michonne will be available for anyone who's gone on the website. If you have any questions or trouble finding something, she will stay on the Zoom call and answer any of your questions. Obviously, she's available after that. So, as I think through this, as I've been involved for a while and is now on the board, just hearing the stories and getting letters from students, it's just, for me, it's very inspiring, very powerful. Really to think like, wow, I'm having a true impact, and I see that impact is very enriching for me personally, but to see what it does for my students and all of our students is great. So once again, I hope you'll consider it. It's really a wonderful experience, and we hope you get involved. Kim?
So thank you, John. Thank you, Paula and Michonne. And thanks everyone for being here tonight, taking an hour out of your very, very busy lives. I know all of you well, so I know how busy you are. And we really wanted to kind of try this new format. We were excited about this. And like I said, it was an excuse to get my friends together as well. And I told you that Paula and her team are drivers. And so, I didn't know how to give no as an answer. But really, we really want to double our impact in the next 5 years. It took us 14 years to impact 600 families. And we think we can double that in the next 5. So that's our BHAG. This is a very personal decision. We are looking for sponsors for these kids. I think there are 65% of them are girls, 35% of them are boys. And which is interesting because generally what happens in Nairobi in the slums is that if a family can afford to send a kid to school, they will educate their boy. So this is why there are more girls available for sponsorship. And so they have a very widely held view there that boys are smarter than girls. And so obviously that's part of my passion here as well. So we can transform a life for $100 a month, but even whatever we do has an impact, makes a difference. So thanks. And I will also love to get your feedback afterwards, you all, call me, shoot me a text, send me an email, what you thought about kind of this approach this evening, because we might try this again with others on the board. May try this approach. I've certainly found it to be fun. So with that, I did promise that we would ask for only an hour. So this might be a 14-minute cocktail hour and Q&A, but let's open it up for questions.
Hey, Kim, and I apologize if I missed this in the presentation. So does and now I'm forgetting what this whole organization is called because I drank half the bottle of wine already.
Good job, Friends of Gone Road.
That's Aaron for you.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Aaron.
Does the program send children to a school, or is the program also the school? Does the Friends of Gong Road run the school, or is it a program getting kids into a school in the community?
Great question. Paula.
Yeah. We decided early on, there are lots and lots of schools in Kenya, and none of us, we're all business people, so we don't really know anything about running schools. So what we have done is we have collected data about the schools that deliver the best academic outcomes in our geographic area at the primary level. And so we have 2 or 3 approved primary schools. When kids enter our program, they're required to go to schools that we select and send them to. When they finish the 8th grade, they take this exam called the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education. And depending on their score, it's a 500-point exam, they are sent to specific schools. And the best high schools in Kenya are government-sponsored boarding schools. And so our aim, and they have national schools, provincial schools, district schools. Our aim is to get as many kids into the national schools as possible. And but we don't get to choose that. So we have kids in a wide variety of high schools. The very lowest performers go to private schools, but we get as many as we possibly can into the government-sponsored high schools because they have the most resources. And then for post-secondary, we give them a specific budget. Again, there are a very wide variety of post-secondary schools, and students spend time thinking about what they're good at, and then they apply to schools that they can access given the resources that we have available.
Does the sponsorship get greater as the kids go to boarding school and go on to kind of maybe more expensive endeavors?
No, shockingly, it stays at $100 a month. I mean, you would think, we think of boarding school as being this kind of high-end fancy thing. And I remember taking I had a family with me once when I traveled to Kenya, and they went to see their sponsored student in boarding school. And the mother in this family was horrified because the student had a pillow, but no pillowcase. So we had to go shopping for pillowcases. The boarding schools are pretty basic, but they have these 3 up bunks, and they, in a small space, they'll have, 3 or 4 across and 2 or 3 going up and down. And each kid has 1 trunk at the end of the bunk, and that's where they get to keep their stuff. And that's it. So they're basic, but it's kind of the British system.
Great, thank you. And thank you so much for your work. This is amazing.
You bet.
Hey, Cam.
Yes, Martha.
Hi. First of all,
Hi.
Thank you so much for the vino. I'm already, like Aaron, into it. It was lovely and very wonderful to get. And what an amazing organization that you are running. I have a quick question about families, meaning, so Jeff and I could easily sponsor a child. In fact, this will be when he gets home from his boys' night out, we'll be chatting about this. But I'd like to involve my children. So do you find also that people families will sponsor a child, and my son could write to them, or they could write to my son? Like, I've got a 23-year-old, a 26-year-old, and us. And so just what's the story on families supporting kids?
It happens a lot. And, then after they get to know these kids, you'll take them to Kenya on safari and meet them. Right. And it is just a fabulous, fabulous experience to walk through the slums, and you'll be more welcome in their home than you can even possibly imagine. They have nothing, but they'll offer you everything that they have. We have grandparents who sponsor for their grandchildren and try to find kids that are of a similar age. We have many, many examples of families who've sponsored to try to bring their kids into the understanding that everybody doesn't live the way we do. The world is a big place, and there are lots. I mean, one of the things that I learned after I founded this organization is that about a third of people in the world, something in excess of 2 billion people, live in this extreme kind of poverty. And I just think it's important to understand it as people who are as privileged as we are.
You know what's really interesting is that when Kim originally shared with us, she and Tom shared with Jeff and I her experience with the kids that she's been sponsoring. I immediately thought of World Vision, or World whatever, and I picture
World Vision is the biggest.
Yeah, the telethon, which is all wonderful work. These are all things that are worthy causes, but it's so far away and removed and difficult to understand how the dollar's connection to a child and getting a postcard that I'm pretty sure is prefabbed or what have you. That's what I was sort of envisioning. And then when Kim had shared with us what this organization does, it's I think a lot of people are much more everyone connects to the person or the being and not the broader organization. So it's really such noble work.
The sponsor student relationship is so central to this organization. And the data point I will share with you is that we have since inception, 94.5% sponsor retention rate. And, when we go through, kids have tough times and all kinds of stuff happens, but sponsors stick with it. And they tell me over and over again, the organization can screw stuff up, but I'm not gonna let go of this kid.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you.
I'm curious, why do some of the kids not continue?
Because they are kids. They're just are. I just this week wrote a letter to a sponsor, and it's a terrible letter to have to write. He and his wife sponsored this boy named Joseph for 10 years. And Joseph was not a great student. And some kids aren't great students. And so we sent Joseph to trade school to become an electrician. And he had a hard time with that too. He took his exams and he failed them. And then COVID came and he decided that his uncle said, come to Mombasa with me. I have this furniture manufacturing business. I'll teach you carpentry. You can make furniture. So he did that. And he decided to drop out of the program. Well, in the meantime, the sponsor's wife died. So she was actually the main. So he's writing this heartfelt letter to this kid, and this kid is leaving the program and he's thinking it's personal. And it's a hard letter to write to that guy. But we have that kind of stuff. Kids are kids. And Joseph thinks his best path is to become a carpenter. And one of my favorite quotes is a quote that is something that Mother Teresa said, and what she said is, we are not called to be successful, we're called to be faithful. And what I said to this sponsor is, you've been faithful, you've done what you can do. And Joseph has to make his own choices. These are kids, and then adolescents, and then young adults, and they have to make their own choices, and they don't all succeed, but a shockingly high number of them do.
How often once they graduate out of the program, do they stay connected to the sponsor because they're not being sponsored any longer? I was just sort of curious.
It depends on the sponsor and the student and their decisions. So one of the things that we're very careful about and very committed to is sponsor privacy and student privacy. And so we do not share your email address, for example, with a student, or your whatever, your main address. Postal address. And so, I know of, I was just with a sponsor last week who has a really deep personal relationship with her student who finished our program 5 or 6 years ago. And this student went to Bahrain, and she's in touch with her, and she knows what she's doing. And they have a deep and abiding, ongoing personal relationship. Some people elect to do it that way. We did not connect them that way. They elected to do that. And then other people don't do that. It's up to the person.
Carlotta's been waiting for a while to ask a question.
Paula and Kim, thank you so much for your time today. This has been such an incredible conversation. You know, the video almost brought me to tears. One thing I would love to hear from the two of you is how receptive do you feel like the sponsorees are to this kind of capital? Like, I'm Colombian, and I don't know if you're hearing me broken up or if that's just feedback on my system, but I'm Colombian, and I've worked in Barranquilla with kids that are of a similar, you know, background, very impoverished, etc. And sometimes you do kind of have this feedback that this is just money coming from, you know, rich white Americans, and, you know, like, it doesn't really move them. I don't have that understanding of Kenyan culture, particularly poverty in Nairobi. Are they receptive to it? I would love to become a sponsor, but I want to make sure it's not just, you know, dollars flowing into someone that's just gonna not really appreciate it, or if it's actually something, you know, that you feel like does motivate them and, you know, incite them. And I'd love to be pen pals with them, but how receptive are they really kind of to it?
Well, and before I actually want to tag onto that question, because, you know, I'm not a rich white American, but I'm a rich Black American. And so I'm wondering,
I'm a Hispanic American. I was just making a generalist comment.
but the question is the cultural part. That's kind of what I have a question. Is there some sort of sensitivity training for the sponsor as we start these conversations? Because I, you know, sort of like Carlotta, what you said, I readily admit I don't relate. I don't have the same lens or perspective. So to build that connection and that support system, is there some kind of help for the sponsor?
Kim, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Because you and Tom have wrestled with this a lot. I mean,
yeah, we do. And, we've thought about it a number of ways, which is there's so much need here in this country, right? We have never been to Nairobi. We were hoping to go last May with Margaret Starner to Africa, and then up to Nairobi to meet Duncan. And so anyway, yes, all those thoughts went through our heads too. And what we have landed on is a couple things. One is it's well run, okay? It just is. And I've seen the impact. I've seen the difference that it makes in Duncan's family and in that community, and with his, you know, it's lifting up his whole family. And so if it, you know, and it's at a price, quite frankly, that it's unfathomable that we can do what we do with that small amount of money. The other thing, you know, like when Paula was answering the question about Margaret's question about, you know, what about the kids who stop going to school? This happens, it happens in our country too. I mean, by the grace of God, Michael graduated from high school, and many of you were there for that. But that even when the kid fails, if you will, which is rare, but it does happen, the family still benefited, okay? They had their kid in school. The kid had 2 meals a day. They had a meal on Saturday. They had a summer camp program so that they could go work and they could provide. And so there's so much, you know, the tentacles are really important. And then we also, one way we talked about it the other night was it's almost like international, it's like your investment portfolio. Okay, we invest in companies in this country, and we invest internationally as well. And we are a global community. And I feel as close to Duncan as, I don't know, the kid who lives downstairs, but I know Duncan in Nairobi. So, you know, it's so personal, but I do feel that, to me, the foundation is so strong. The spend is right for the ROI that occurs, and the fact that you see this entire community transforming. So we're not giving them money. In fact, Paul, we could talk about this on another call sometime, but you know, we've learned that some kids have to have transportation to go to school. So instead of giving them money for transportation, because that is a very high risk thing to do, we make sure that the transporters get paid so that they get the kids to school. So there's not this slippage, fraudulent slippage in the process. And that was a lot of learning along the way too. But
So
Amazing.
to
Thank you for your
answer
comments. And a little-
directly, Carlotta,
Yeah.
first of all, I have to tell you, our youngest son we adopted from Colombia. So I'm thrilled to meet
that's
somebody
so
from
sweet.
Colombia.
Very
Um,
sweet.
Kim was with me when we were adopting Ethan back in
Yes,
the
I
day.
was.
And I mean, these kids know, they don't know when they're little, but when they get to be high school age, they know what has been done, what kind of gift they have received. And they're appreciative all the time, but when they are finished, they know that their life is different than it otherwise would have been.
Amazing. Little follow-on question. If you sponsor a particular child in a family, is there the ability to stick with that family? You know, say the eldest sibling goes to college and there's two younger sisters or something like that. Are your relationships with the family close enough where you would be able to tell us, you know, this is an X opportunity that has arisen? Do you want to continue your sponsorship with this particular family, or is it kind of child by child?
We have people who have sponsored more than one child in a family. We have a self-imposed rule that we only sponsor 2 children in a family, even though there can be multiple, and it used to be 3, now it's 2. And the reason for that is that if there's 1 or 2 who finish, they can help the rest of the family. And so we just think we help the community most if we spread our money around.
Amazing. Thank you.
I think Barb has had her hand up and Corliss.
Hey, Barb.
Hello. Yeah, so Paula, my question for you is, you know, why Kenya? Why start your own? Why choose this? I mean,
great question.
You know, it's, I want to get to the heart of the passion behind it. And there's 1,000 ways you could have gone with this. And why did you choose the way you chose?
I would tell you, Barb, I didn't choose it. It chose me. We were in Kenya, and that's how life is sometimes. Sometimes something just comes and it's meant for you. We were in Kenya in 2005 at Christmas time on a photo safari with our kids and an extended family group. And I met this person who asked me on the last day, January 1st of 2006, do I know people who would sponsor children so they could get an education? So now at this time, I had been in Kenya for 3 weeks. I had a BlackBerry at that time, and the BlackBerries didn't work in Africa. And so I was completely vulnerable. I was relaxed. I was completely vulnerable. And, you know, at the time I had 3 teenagers and I had had a long career as an executive, and I always have loved the work that I do, but I felt like the work that I didn't have a direct impact on human beings in the way that I wanted to. And so on the way home, after I emptied my wallet out to give him money to sponsor these 2 little girls, including Emily, I thought about it, and I thought, I mean, you got 17 hours to think about it on the way home, or 18 or something like that. So you got plenty of time. And I just decided, even though there are lots of great organizations in the world, and there are, we do seem to still have an infinite supply of orphans and vulnerable children. And my most profound belief is that kids deserve a chance. They don't ask to be born. And if they're born, they deserve a chance. And so I just decided, well, I can start an organization, and here we are. And as was said in the video, I mean, if you knew going in what you know 15 years later, you might not have done it, but I'm very grateful that I've done it. It's the best work I've done in my life.
Thanks for sharing.
And I would say that we are 6 minutes past the hour, and I'm going to stay. Paula's going to stay. Yep. John and Michonne. So if you want to keep going with questions, but I understand
my wine.
Some of you have dinner plans. So
Patrice just asked if this recording will be available, and it will be. We've been recording this, and so we're going to be sending out the recording so that you can all watch it or share it with people that you know. And you should have also all received an email from us with various links to the website, links to become a sponsor, links to make a donation. So you'll see that in your inbox as well. And that came directly from me. I'm Michonne, who people have mentioned a couple of times.
The woman behind the curtain.
So if you have any questions, if the sponsorship page doesn't work, if you don't know who to pick, you can just reply to it and I'm happy to help you.
And by the way, Carlota, Sangeeta wants your phone number. And Lisa,
absolutely.
Lisa
I did
Resnick
have
has a
one-
question. Oh,
sorry.
ahead.
One question.
Oh, good. First of
Kat,
all,
thank
my
you.
gosh, how inspirational and fantastic is this this happy hour, this organization. It's unbelievable, really unbelievable what you've done. The quick question I have is, how do the kids, so you have 200 kids waiting, and how do the kids in these devastating circumstances that they live in, with no telephone, no internet, electricity, how do they even know about this opportunity to try and go for it? And how do you find these kids? Is this the case managers or?
In Nairobi, it's just shocking the number of women that I've met in Kenya who find out that they're HIV positive when they get pregnant, and they go for their first prenatal care, and they're married, and they find out that they're pregnant, or that they're HIV positive. It's a devastating, it's a devastating experience to marry somebody and then find out that they've brought you AIDS. And these women form support groups. And there are community AIDS workers who help them navigate that, who help them figure out how to give birth to a child that is not HIV positive, who help them figure out how to not pass the disease to the next child, and to take their meds, and to do all the stuff that you have to do to live with AIDS. And so these women talk because they're women. And so they hear about us from one another, and that's how it's all word of mouth. We've done zero advertising or anything like that.
That's terrific. And Kim, I think this is a wonderful way to spread this message. I think it's.
Do you?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's also fun to talk about what to watch on Netflix and what's going on with you.
Right, with your
children.
children.
A little bit better than that, yeah.
Well, and of course, you men are outnumbered, but I definitely want to thank Dan and Roger and who am I missing here, for being real men and showing up tonight. So thank you. I know Catherine's on an airplane, Dan, right? Yeah. And Raj, I miss you. Other
Where's
questions?
Tom tonight? Is he in the background?
He is. I told him he couldn't be in here with me because he makes me it's too distracting.
Oh, come on. Have him come out and say
Tim,
hi.
You're so bad.
Like make a cameo.
We have to thank him for the wine.
We do.
Okay, I'll reel him in here.
Em, just say, dude, thank you. It's plenty.
All right.
We've had two people who have really jumped the gun and are already sponsoring. So thank you both. This is fantastic.
Oh, that's lovely.
Kim, this is Corliss. Can I jump in with just a really quick question?
Would you please?
I may have missed it earlier, so please forgive me, but is this a 501c3 organization? I'm just thinking this could come out of my donor advised fund.
Of course it can. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a 501. Yes,
That's
absolutely.
what I needed to know. Thank you.
Between January of 2006 and when we launched in late 2006, I had a lawyer working with me to apply for 501c3 status and so forth. So yes.
I'm so glad you brought that
are
up, Corliss. Corliss leads our charitable fund at Raymond James, at Raymond James Trust. She also, by the way, is the co-chair of our Women's Inclusion Network. She's amazing. And so Corliss, it is in the drop down now, Friends of Gong Road on our donor advised fund site.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we even post our 990s on our website, Corliss.
Every year.
Every year.
Excellent. Way to
Absolutely.
go.
That's it.
Thank you.
I'm
And the
involved.
fact that people can do their matching donations as well.
Yeah, so thank you. Sangeeta had got a match from UBS, which was great.
Yeah. Paula, I'm involved.
Coincidence that it just came through today, so that was good.
What were you going to say, Erin?
I was going to say, Paul, I'm involved with a local charity that does something very similar for girls in at-risk families and tough communities and in poverty and foster homes. So this kind of speaks to some of my passions, but I will say that like your numbers of success, because we track those every month over at PACE, like that is really something to be proud of. That's some amazing numbers.
Thank you for saying
numbers
that.
that aren't as high as that. So I know.
I visited recently with someone who was in charge of the Minneapolis Foundation, and she was telling me about a program they did in Minneapolis over 10 years. So it was not a trivial investment. They put and the per student cost is, let's just say 10 times approximately our per student cost. And she said our results were a fraction of your results. And I want to understand it. I mean, we actually worked with an academic from Tulane to try to more deeply understand why. Why is it that it's harder to get this kind of results in the United States, which I believe it is, than it is in Kenya? And I think really part of it is Africa and this kind of sense of, even though AIDS has devastated families in Africa and in Kenya, there is this deep, deep, deep commitment to family and to the kids in Kenya. And I think that, what this academic found as she studied our program, and it was a qualitative analysis, not quantitative, she believes that it's this surround sound, it's the we-powerment picture that I showed you, that it's the teachers, the case managers, the sponsors, the volunteer, it's all of that working together that provides enough infrastructure that it helps most of the kids get through. Not all of them, but most of them.
And if you ever have a chance to go to Kenya, going there and meeting the child and hugging them and just having the realness of, I'm paying every month for this kid, but here they are. And I got to meet my child a couple of years ago, and we got to go have lunch together, and I got to see her home and meet her grandmother and her mother. And it's just, I will be a sponsor forever, because regardless of the fact that I work for Friends of Gong Road, I will continue to be a sponsor because I've made that connection with that child now, and she's real. So it's really a unique thing.
I have a question. So
yes.
Extreme. And I was just wondering, alumni kids have
Nadia, we can't really hear you. Is your speaker sitting on or you can type it into the chat, and I'm happy to.
Can you hear me right now?
That's better. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there's this distance thing. So this has been extremely interesting. I'm a daughter of immigrants, and so just understanding, how life is not how we always think it is for everybody, like we had discussed. But I was wondering if any of the kids who are like the alumni, if they've had the desire to want to come to the U.S. for schooling, or I've noticed, I looked at the site, I did kind of my pre-call work and noticed there are some engineers, doctors, if they've wanted to continue their education in the U.S. And then how does your organization or our sponsorship continue into that post-secondary education?
It's a great question. And, I recently, in fact, met with a Kenyan who has got her green card and is in the United States. And she really wants to help us create some kind of infrastructure so kids could come to the United States. Our commitment really has been not to do that. Our commitment has been to help these students find their path in Kenya. And we've had one student who was selected as an AFS student. So she came to Ohio for 1 year during her high school years and then went back to Kenya. And if a student had an opportunity, I'm not saying we wouldn't help them or do what we could to support them. But as you know, I mean, we can send a student to post-secondary education in Kenya for, you know, $1,000 a year. And when they come here, what are they going to pay? I mean, it's just the affordability. Part of what is so great about doing this work in Kenya is no fooling, all in. We can transform a kid's life for $2,500 a year, all in. And you just can't do that in the United States. So while I'm involved, I will resist having the US be the future for these kids. There are more Kenyan doctors in Chicago than there are US doctors, I think. I mean, there are lots and lots of Kenyans in the United States, immigrants.
Right. Great, thank you. Thanks, Kim, for pulling us together too.
Yeah. Well, thanks to everyone for being here. And I really don't want to cut it off, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time.
People can go what they want or stay as long as they want. We'll be here, or I'll be
Bye,
here.
AB.
I just had a quick question. And first of all, I wanted to say thank you because it was an amazing program. And I am familiar with your organization, and it was just a great evening. But kind of a follow-up to the question about the alumni, Paula. Do a lot of them come back and actually, are they active in the organization after they're off doing another, have a career of their own?
You know, it's a great question, Deb. I think that the right answer is that some of them are. I mean, we have an alumni association, and they gather once a year for a meal that we pay for in a place that we choose that's near Nairobi. And the last time I attended that was in 2019. And I think there were like 30 students and we have 60 alumni at the time. So, you know, so it's that level of participation. But we have students who now are, I mean, this Alicia, who's an engineer, a civil engineer that we sponsored, he's doing a water project somewhere in the middle of Kenya. And so it's not easy for him to get back to Nairobi. I mean, my aspiration, and we haven't got this figured out yet, but I do aspire to create some kind of a sponsorship infrastructure so that, you know, 4 or 5 of them can come together, and for $20 a month, they could sponsor a child, or even $10 a month is probably more realistic for what they could do. But we haven't got that infrastructure in place yet. So, you know, I would say that probably a third to a half of the alumni come back, they mentor kids, they help with the Saturday program, they are involved and engaged, and probably a third to a half just really aren't.
Great. Well, thanks. And like I said, it was a fabulous, I love the videos, love the Q&A and the wine as well. So thank you for everything.
Thank you for coming. And I don't want to put Keith on the spot, but one thing you haven't heard about, and this might be a good way to just close it out, because there's a next chapter that we could do at another time, is the work that you're doing, Keith, around Karibu.
Okay, so I'd be happy to. So in about 2015, the board decided that we wanted to look for ways to raise funds that weren't dependent on charitable donations. So we started a company in Kenya, and of course we chose portable toilets. That was Paula's idea. So
it wasn't my idea, but that's what we chose.
That's what we chose. And so we've been running this business for about 5 years. It has had kind of a rocky history, mostly because of the leadership. We've struggled a lot with the leadership. What it does two things. We do two kinds of business. One is events. Nairobi, if you go there, it's like Pune or Denver or these Shangri-La kind of places where the weather is always pretty good. They will complain bitterly in Kenya when it gets to 60, and they complain bitterly when it gets to 85. We think, okay, that sounds really good. And so it's always nice weather. And so everything that takes place outside, weddings, funerals, parties, you name it, it's always outside. Well, of course, there are no facilities outside. So our business is to basically supply those toilets. With the toilets, we send one of our kids. Usually it's a recent high school graduate. They're really toilet attendants, but we call them sales and operations associates because that looks better on a resume. And so they talk, and we teach them things like, yes, you have to show up on time. No, you can't wear your torn jeans. You have to wear your jeans that are in pretty good shape. Yes, you have to smile at the clients. And yes, you have to do the job. And, it's the first time they've ever had to show up and do work. And so they've never seen dad get up in the morning and go to work. That doesn't happen in the slums, right? Or mom. They see people with these hand to mouth jobs. And so they're just not used to this culture of going to work. So we've had about 100 kids go through what we call our associate program. The other side of the business is commercial, which is basically construction sites. And we employ about 5 of our graduates. As Paula politely puts it, it's the ones who maybe didn't do so well in school. And they run the program. They drive the trucks. They, exhaust the loos at the site. They keep them clean, and that's their jobs. So it's a interesting. Whoever thought I'd be running a toilet business in Kenya? It's like never saw that in my career, but it's kind of fun.
He now understands branding.
Awesome.
I understand what?
Branding.
Brandy, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so Tom wanted to say hello before we all sign off tonight. So
hi, Tom.
Here, I
here's
have to
his
get
cameo.
my cameo. There we go. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Tom. Thank you.
Great to see you.
You too.
Great to see you indeed. I really hope you've had a good time this evening. Well, at least this evening here in Florida, because I think this is really great work. It's really a terrific outfit. Paul, I see you there. And something that you've been so effective at. Obviously my comments are quite impromptu here, but
where's your prepared remarks?
Oh, my prepared remarks here on the back of my hand. No, it's been such a success, and there's much more to do. And in the portfolio of charitable things that we all maintain, I think this has a good place, has a great place. So thank you all for being here. It's great to see you. I'll ring off now.
Good job, Tom.
Thank you.
You didn't screw it up.
I didn't
Good job
screw it
picking
up.
the wines, Tom.
That's the best that
Tom,
any.
look.
Thank
Look,
you, Tom.
Nadia.
It's the best any husband can ever hope for. You didn't screw it up.
Nadia, Patty, Deb,
I'm off. Bye.
Barbara.
I just signed up.
All right. Well, thank you for your perseverance and your great engagement, all of you. And so Friends of Gong Road, gongroad.org is the website, right, Hassan?
Yep.
And, if you have any questions, just let me know and we'll follow up. And oh, Nadia has one last question. What, Nadia?
Is Gong Road an actual road?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Have you read Out of Africa or seen the movie with Meryl Streep? It's one of the best movies ever.
Okay.
She lived in the Gong Hills. Gong in Swahili means knuckles. And so these hills that are in the distance behind Nairobi look like a series of knuckles. And her coffee farm was in the Gong Hills, and Gong Road is the oldest, longest road into the center of Nairobi. And we operate right along Gong Road.
Okay.
So put your knuckles out, everybody.
That's right. It means knuckles.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank you.
Hey,
for being here.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much,
for
Kim.
doing
Thank you
this.